Thank you, Chairman Ward, and good afternoon to all of you, friends, family, fellow elders. We've always done the international reports 5 or 6 countries at a time with about 10 or 12 minutes each, and they never had enough time, so they decided to give me 25 minutes to cover the whole world. Jesus Christ told us to, and we'll be spread probably about as thin as we are in the ministry trying to give this report. It's good, though. Christ told us in Mark 16:15 to go and preach the gospel to every creature, and again to go and teach all nations and baptize them in His name in the church. With 6 to 7 billion people on earth, that's about 100 million apiece, so some of you are slacking off a little. But it's an incredible work that's in front of all of us, whether at home or domestically in your countries or internationally. And the angel told Zerubbabel in Zechariah 4:6, not by might or power, but by my spirit, says the Lord. And that's exactly where we are. It's His power that lets us go through and do those things. President Kubik said he wants Timothy's. I'm looking for Apostle Paul's because they're willing to go anywhere at any time through hard times, and they're able to comfort the afflicted in some of the deepest circumstances that the world has, and many are afflicted in this world. Men who can't be intimidated by religious or government leaders, which we often have to fight customs and immigration and other religions in these countries as well. And to be able to, willing to be stoned on occasion. And hopefully we don't have to worry about that, but one never knows with some of these countries. Most of the people in the third and developing world want wealth, and sadly what they need is truth, and that's exactly what we have to offer them. As Peter said, silver and gold have I none, but what I have I give you. In Jesus' name, rise up and walk. Rich countries don't really think they need God in a lot of ways, sadly. It's what they need is beyond what they think. Poor countries either have superstition in gods or wonder where God is because He doesn't seem to like them. In some of their cases, they feel like that He's left them out. And to see the people that are lamed and diseased and crippled in many of the places where the senior pastors have to go, I know if they feel like I do, I've always wished I could heal people like Peter, but at the same time, if you were able to do that, you would attract great crowds, but they'd be there for health care more than for the truth, which is unfortunate. In fact, even when I anoint people, a lot of times, and sometimes secretly, I'll ask God if He would just heal them after I leave a couple of days, because when I went to the one country, one of the men that had a disease was healed, and next year they told me 2 people needed to be anointed, and the minute I started anointing them, a whole line lined up for healing, for education and housing and anything that they wanted. And, you know, it's not us. It never is us. Never will be us. But we want to help as much as we can in all the different parts of the world because we're commanded to do so. It's the world we live in, and it needs help. It needs the gospel. It needs what Christ brought and gave to His disciples, and it's been passed down to us. And we can't reach them all now except through the internet, if and where they have internet. And they do now through their smartphones, amazingly enough. So many of the poorest people have smartphones, and we're becoming a world of smartphones and dumb people, where your phone has to tell you what to do, basically, anymore. Many of these areas that we work in the remote parts of the world, don't have elders, and that's a difficult thing. And to go through some of those things, just some of the places we have in Malaysia and Sabah, we have 41 people attending, a local congregation, and no elder there. South Pacific, Solomon Islands, we have people there contact just the last 3 years. They've got a congregation and a lot of room for growth there, but again, no elder. They have to be serviced out of New Zealand or Australia. Tonga, there's a congregation of 12 with, again, no elder. Vanuatu, another island, a group who recently contacted us, and they've been keeping the Sabbath and holy days. They still sing songs out of the old Purple hymnal, if you remember that one. And Bill Bradford visited them in February, and they want to associate with us, about 80 people plus, who, needing shepherding, needing leadership, as Dr. Ward said, in that. And it's sad. We're glad that New Zealand, which only has one elder with its 85 scattered people around trying to help, and Australia, with as thin as they are, helping out as well in that. Kuala Lumpur has some members there that want to be visited. Again, they can't don't have an elder to work with them. 9 people meet every week, and they actually watch the telecast in Cincinnati, so I guess that's the most distant satellite church we have. Steve Myers hasn't visited yet. I'll have to talk to him about that. But they do get a visit 2 or 3 times a year from Grant Chick or one of the Australian ministers. French work, of course, in Europe and in Africa. Thankfully, Tim Pebworth and Maurice have come aboard to be able to help out in that area, to visit as much as we can. Again, they have 14 French-speaking congregations in 7 countries with 4 elders, and that includes Tim Pebworth, who also pastors in San Jose, along with that, and members in France, and about 25 prospective members and 10 more in Brussels and Belgium that are adding to that. In Africa, his countries that are French-speaking with members in that you have to visit, again without elders, basically in most cases, Lomé, Togo, Cameroon, Cote d'Ivoire, Benin, the 2 Congos, the Republic of Congo and the Democratic Republic of Congo. It's not one country, and they often fight with each other, but we have the Benza members in the one and the Kinshasa members in the other. And there's about 100 members there in the DRC that actually agree with all our doctrines and want to be part of UCG and assimilate into the Kinshasa group if they can, but they need leadership and guidance. And again, most of these countries only have a deacon as a contact to work with. And other people, French-speaking, have contacted us in Burundi and Rwanda and the Eastern DNC, and they're supported actually by John Elliott and the Kenya ministers who can go in from that side easier than from the other side of the country, which is amazing. In East Africa, again, where John Elliott and Mary and Monty Knutson and his wife Susie are the understudies, as we're all trying to find any understudies we can to cover these areas. There's about 675 in the average attendance in the 5 countries that they have, mostly in Kenya, but also Rwanda, Tanzania, Congo, Uganda, and Burundi. So those areas are giant circuit spread. Ghana is about 300 people there, and I was talking to Paul Moody at lunch that they're going to try to do 1 feast site. They've had 2, but because the village people are very poor and the city people actually do fairly well with jobs, but they found when they bring the village people into the city in a hotel, they tend to kill their goats there and roast them inside the room, which irritates hotels, obviously. So they're finding a place that has a hotel near the camping type area where they can have them all together because they want to be together, but that's kind of an unusual situation that you have there. And again, Nigeria, where they do a lot of their work, and thankfully it's English speaking for the most part, that 140 members in 3 congregations, again, no elders, but a network of about 100 Beyond Today readers that meet together and try to have regular attendance because they like our doctrines and they're scattered. They'd probably attend with us, but they're scattered so far they usually attend with other Seventh-day groups for fellowship. But they'd love to have our ministers and elders and people there to help them. And then we got my areas, Zimbabwe, Zambia, and Malawi, where we have a few elders, but people are so scattered. In Zimbabwe, about 54 people scattered on the far edges of the country where you got to go down to Harare and back up to see them all. It's almost impossible to catch all of them, with a couple of elders, one of whom is having major health difficulties, can't do much as such. And in Zambia, 5 churches or so with about 600 in attendance scattered around with 3 elders, and again spread around the country. In Malawi, with the 2 buildings we had there, and 2 elders, one that we drafted temporary assignment, Lewis and Lena over there to help organize that and provide leadership for them. And then South Africa with its 4 elders and congregations as well, trying to service the people there. It's a broad work with so many languages and so many people. I look at this sometimes and I think it'd be hard enough to do it as a spirit being, let alone physical. And the travel things and what happens. In Sri Lanka, we have about 35 in attendance there, and Dave and Jolinda Schreiber take care of that, along with India with its 1 official congregation with about 15 attending and 5 other members scattered. But they have 3 other congregations that they just decide they're United Church of God and put a sign up, and they become that by themselves without us. So if you felt like you've been bypassed as a GCE, you were, but the council doesn't endorse them, so we haven't violated any bylaws. But it's fascinating to see these people that connect themselves with us, and they look at our fundamental beliefs. They have 80 in Mizoram, and they have another group in Dragavadidium, and also one in Vizak Haptatnam, which names are difficult to pronounce. But the people that have switched from Sunday to Sabbath, and they recognize in some cases they've lost 40, 50% of their congregation, but they've seen it, saw it was real, and began keeping the holy days and things. So God does these things, and even when we don't even have someone there sometimes. In the Spanish-speaking areas, we have, in Mexico, one elder, which has a church circuit basically from Canada to Texas and California, and trying to cover all those areas with 100 people in 2 churches and scattered people in 6 Bible study groups. Again, with Mario trying to coordinate all Latin America and having one elder to do that country. Guatemala, another 203 congregations with one elder. Colombia, one elder, and 76 and 5 congregations, small ones spread out. El Salvador, no elders, 1 congregation. Panama, no elders, 9 members there. Trying to service these people as best we can. Bolivia, 1 elder, 20 people in 2 congregations, 2 small ones. In Chile, 2 elders, about 180 members in 2 congregations and 4 Bible study groups. In Argentina, again, no elder, but 20 members in 2 congregations. Then we have the Philippines with Dave and Denise Dobson and Earl Romer running that and getting ready to pass the baton down to them and to take care. And they're a little better off in the sense that they have about 560 attending, but 16 congregations and a bunch of small family groups by video, and 10 ordained elders, but you may think that's good coverage, except when you got 1,000 islands with people spread all over the islands. I mean, you're trying to take boats and things across to meet them. It's very difficult and tough. Hong Kong has no elders, but some members there and a couple members in Shanghai that come for holy days. Caribbean, you're talking over 200 people there with no elders. Chuck and Mary Smith trying to help coordinate and draft people from here to go down and visit to help out there, which is not a bad draft, though. Caribbean's pretty close and nice. That's nice. Germany, 5 elders and 6 congregations with outlying Bible studies, 150, and I'm always thankful for some of the more modern countries that can take care of themselves. Netherlands, 2 elders serving the congregation there. Britain, about 7 elders with 130 scattered across the UK and Ireland. And then we have George de Campos, 1 elder serving the whole Portuguese world. So he's got about a third of the speakers on the earth that he has to work with. And on 3 different continents, and I guess if you were to count India and some of the Portuguese speaking there, you could say 4 continents. It's a difficult world. And then Australia and Canada, again, I love them. They can take care of themselves so much easier. I don't have to worry about them. They give me advice, actually, so I can ask them questions. And I'm appreciative of the support that they give and what they do in all these things. And it's a challenge. It's a challenge for us all to cover that much of the world. Paul puts it plainly, like Dr. Ward quoted, how can the people know if they haven't heard? If they haven't believed, how can we believe the people they haven't heard? And how can they hear without a preacher? And how can they preach except someone sent to them? And then it says that how beautiful are the feet of those who do this, so we'll check your feet on the way out and see if you qualify, because we need a few more of you out there. No, it's beautiful. We need those people, and we're trying to work with and get more people, old or young, to go. We're asking anybody that can come help to help out, but particularly if we can get some of the younger people to study under us. Obviously, the manpower-wise, we can't support them much more than we're doing already, and we're very limited financially as well. And someday we may not be able to go there with the world arming itself the way they are and the anger that's out there. Our currency could collapse at any time, which means we wouldn't be able to financially do the things that we'd like to do. And so I continually emphasize to all the areas the goal is to become self-sufficient, to let God provide. It's really the spiritual, His power, that what does it anyway. And so we really need to look at that. And it means we have to teach all the local men and prepare them for what they have to do. And you can ask, how do we plan to train them? Well, ABC is doing a wonderful job in training a lot of our young people that we can get in there. And they are a good future, and we're trying to push their usage up in the church to ever younger ages, but still, not ordain a man or put a man in something he can't do too young. But all of you are aware of the wall we face trying to get people in here for visas from especially the developing world. We were rejected for our application for the I-20s and our appeal as well. And now we're working with the H-3 visa, which is another form which UCG will try to bring people in for training and mentoring And the big component of the H3 is an educational component, which they will outsource to ABC, which is nice, and we're working on that as well. We don't know how that's going to work, and perhaps God doesn't want a lot of people from the developed world to come over here. And so we're looking at what we can take to them. You know, history has shown when a lot of the developing world, regardless of their church status, come to the Western world and see the affluence and the blessings of Abraham, that they don't want to go back. And, or if they do, that's why you have so many corrupt leaders. They come over here, see this, and they want it, so the people are in abject poverty while they steal and live in mansions because they think they should be on our standard when those blessings haven't yet been given, the blessings that will come in the millennium to all people at that time. So we look at other methods of training and bringing people to work, and if that's what Christ wants us to do, we'll do it the way he directs us to do that. We're looking at doing something. You know, recently we sent Lewis and Lena Van Osdale to Malawi to pastor the Longway Church, because the distance, the other pastor couldn't get there very long, and the lack of leadership was tearing the church apart in many ways. And we have buildings there as well. But they went there gladly to give us a year. And also we had a young couple that graduated 2 years ago from ABC that they called and wrote an email about a year ago asking, say they wanted to spend a year helping anywhere they could, and thought maybe they could go to India and help out there. I wasn't about to send a young married couple to India when there was actually no support that we could do for them in that country. And so it came out that, in talking to President Kubik, that why not send them to Malawi? We have a house there with Lewis and Lena and 2 bedrooms, and so they're living with them there now. But I began to think of, you know, they're not ready to take on a church totally, and they're not ready to do some things, but they've been through ABC and they can moderate. And so we're thinking about trying to do a youth corps project, and which is nice because Lena coordinates our youth corps things as well. But to bring some of those young people for a year training. You know, the Mormons are very successful with their 2-year training program with their young people, but to go over there and actually work with the people and maybe moderate the ABC classes, take them in there and show them. Again, nobody has all the answers, and they certainly wouldn't, but they can listen to the lectures that Dr. Ward gives in his class, and all the other faculty, Steve Myers and Darius Medili and Jerry Oss, and we can go on and on with the adjunct professors we have. But a young ABC graduate who has gone through that would have heard it already. He could moderate, listen again, get a refresher course for himself, and be able to actually maybe take some of those classes into that country where the feast sites we have. We have one in Kenya. We have a couple buildings in Malawi now. We have the camp and the building in Zambia, and a building in Nigeria. We might be able to actually take a young youth corps graduate of ABC and send them there with the, on a SD card you can put, hundreds of hours of classes, and actually bring the young people in. So for the price of trying to bring one person in here that costs us several $1,000s, we could bring a dozen or 20 people in from those countries next door or within the country and give them an ABC education of sorts to start really bringing up the local people. And that's what we're really looking at doing in those places where we have those buildings and the facilities and feast sites with the restroom facilities and even apartments in some cases, in some of them, where they could actually stay. We've got to do something, and we have to do it before our time runs out and before we can't get in there and do those things anymore. And so we certainly appreciate all of the regional pastors or the senior pastors we have, and then those that are not necessarily senior pastors, but Dan Porteous tries to help in the Solomons, and Grant Chick helps up in Singapore, and Scott and Gail Hofker who go down to Spanish area all the time, and some others, and Mark Rim. The people that give of themselves and their own time to be able to bring up the level of spirituality within those members that God has called, those precious members that we have, that God's Spirit's there, and we want to work with that and make it work. But I do believe if we can, again, ask any of you. There's so many people think it's very expensive to go to the feasts and help out. And it is expensive to go to some of the places, but it's not that expensive. And when you get to some of them, we have some feast sites that are actually fairly nice that you can do for, $40 or $50 a day for a family in some cases. And so you can get there and help out, and that way some of us senior pastors won't have to give, 8 to 10 sermons in one feast, which would make it easier on all of us as well. And then to get some of our younger people, they're more excited, they have more energy, they have the energy that most of us had 40, 50 years ago, I guess. Depends on how old we are getting. And I'm starting to turn gray. I think I got that from the treasurer's job because I look at Rick Shaby, I thought, good thing I got out of that job. So I inherited the rest of the world. But it's a remarkable opportunity, and when you get there, yeah, it's not necessarily as nice as some of our sites, but it's about the millennium. It's about the kingdom of God. It's about raising those people up, and you come rejuvenated, if you can say that. One feast, I had 14 sermons between the Sabbath before trumpets and when I got back, and I was worn out, but I was rejuvenated because these people really need what you know, what you have to offer, and to comfort them and to tell them that they can do it and that they can do it on their own. All too often, they think that we do all these things on our own. We don't. We did it because of the blessings of Abraham and God's Spirit, and I keep telling them they have the same access to God's Spirit, and they can find ways to do it in their own countries themselves and make it work. And so I consider the people that are willing to take this challenge heroes. All of our senior pastors are heroes in my mind, and all the students that go over, and all the elders that are willing to give of their time. Mr. Lucas is always going down to help me in Africa. Certainly appreciate that. And so I would ask anyone who has the interest and the strength to do it to volunteer. If you need a little help financially to get there, we might be able to, I'll try to see if I can carve something out of my budget to help you go. Because it really does make you appreciate them, their world, and our world, and the world that's yet to come when Christ returns and everybody finds out what it's about. I told we had the luncheon for our senior pastors back there, and so I gave them or Dr. Ward's directive. I said they'll rise as high as we can kick them. So we'll go, but no, they do well with what they have. But the key is the encouragement that they need and the prayers they need from us certainly make it something that we just need to give that attention to, because it's our directive. Christ gave the orders, not us, and we have to do it. And so we pray for them. We certainly thank all of you for your contributions and your prayers and the offerings, and oftentimes churches that do collections for them. The students at ABC last year were talking about, what can you do with second tithe? And they were talking about all the fun things and different things and how much of that you should spend and do. And they each one of them made a comment. They looked back at me for a comment, and I said, it's really nice when we send over $1,000 to one of the feast sites and they send a thank you back. And the thank you says, thank you so much, because now at least we'll be able to have an egg or a piece of meat with our breakfast. It makes you realize the rest of the world is not where we are, and so we want to help them out. But the international areas, again, they're functioning, but we need more help, just like everybody else. And if you want to get away from where you are right now and help out, volunteer. And encourage your young people to volunteer and help out as well. Because together this work will be done. Christ says his work will be done. It's a matter, our choice isn't whether it's going to happen. Our choice is whether we want to help be part of it. And we all do, or we wouldn't be here. So thank you.